At this point in the 2024 offseason, I can only see the Pittsburgh Steelers potentially replacing Kenny Pickett with two signal callers, Justin Fields of the Chicago Bears and Russell Wilson, the soon-to-be-released quarterback for the Denver Broncos. Today, I'm going to be breaking down both of Justin Fields and Russell Wilson's games, and then I'll tell you which one I would rather go get if I were the Pittsburgh Steelers. But first, make sure you go check us out on the channel. If you guys want to see why I want to replace Kenny Pickett as the starting quarterback of this football team moving forward, I broke down all of my reasons why on yesterday's video. I'm going to put the link to that one in the comments and description of today's show. So if you want to check that one out before we get into Justin Fields and Russell Wilson today, you can go ahead and do that right now. But without further ado, go ahead and get down there in the comment section before we get things going today. Who would you have as the Steelers quarterback one for 2024? Would you go with Justin Fields? Would you go with Mason Rudolph? Would you go with Kenny Pickett? Let me know down there in the comment section. And without further ado, let's get into today's show. So we're breaking down Justin Fields and Russell Wilson on today's edition of Steelers Talk. So let's talk about Russell Wilson first, because I've talked about Fields more than I've talked about Russ. But I think Russell Wilson is a very good option for the Pittsburgh Steelers if they want to go that route and they want to kind of really maximize their opportunities to potentially win a Super Bowl in the short term here in Pittsburgh with all the talent that they have on the roster right now. And I have a couple reasons why I think Russell Wilson would be a good fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number one, he's still pretty darn good as a starting quarterback here in the National Football League. No, he's no longer the MVP candidate that he used to be there in Seattle, but people talk about Russell Wilson like he's completely cooked. Well, that's just not the case. You look at his numbers from last season. I mean, really good touchdown to interception ratio, and then he's top 10 or top 5 and most of the major analytical categories here. Adjusted completion percentage, he was top 5, third in the entire National Football League. You look at the accuracy metrics there, catchable and on-target percentage, 5th and 6th respectively in 2023. The big-time throw percentage was 10th, so not only is he accurate, but he's making big-time throws with accuracy still, even though he's starting to get up there in age at this point. The touchdown percentage is top 5 in the National Football League. The interception percentage was kept within the top 10 range. And then the passer rating was top 10 as well at 98.0. So this guy is still performing arguably at a top 10 level in terms of NFL starters. And people are talking about Russell Wilson like he is just like chopped liver. Like if we bring him in, the Steelers are just going to have a terrible offense, even though we know what it's like to have Kenny Pickett as the starting quarterback of this football team. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Is Russell Wilson still a good starting quarterback in the National Football League, or were those numbers just lying? Give me a yes or no for this question. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. So YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question with a yes or no. Reason number 2 to go get Russell Wilson is that he is extremely clutch. He's one of the most clutch quarterbacks in National Football League history. And people talk about Kenny Pickett like he's a really clutch quarterback. But you look at Russell Wilson, man, and this guy has just been unbelievable throughout his career. 31 fourth-quarter comebacks. That's top 10 all-time. He's tied for 9th in that particular category. Then he's 10th all-time with 39 game-winning drives in his career. Okay, this is, again, all-time in the National Football League's history. Russell Wilson is still playing, and he's in the top 10. Then in the postseason, he has 4 postseason fourth-quarter comebacks and 4 postseason game-winning drives. Of course, he won a Super Bowl back with the Seattle Seahawks. He was an incredible play by Malcolm Butler away from winning 2 Super Bowl titles. Okay, so this guy is absolutely able to get the job done in the playoffs. And with this team, in my opinion, ready to win now with T.J. Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick and George Pickens and all the talent that they have on the Steelers roster right now, I could totally see Russell Wilson getting the job done in the postseason. Then reason number 3 here for Russ is that he is extremely affordable. In fact, he is the most affordable option for the Steelers starting quarterback out of anybody. That includes Kenny Pickett. That includes Mason Rudolph. That includes everybody. So here's how it all breaks down. So right now, Russell Wilson has a clause with his contract with the Denver Broncos. If the Broncos release him, and it certainly looks like they're going to, if Russell Wilson signs with another team this season, Denver has to pay off the difference between what he would have made with the Broncos this year in 2024 and what his current team is paying him this year as well. So essentially, he can sign for the vet minimum, which is about $1.6 million, and the Denver Broncos would still have to pay Russell Wilson over $34 million next season. I mean, that is just an astronomical number, and that's an extremely economical figure for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, the NFL vet minimum for players that have been in the league for 7+ years is just over $1.6 million. Okay, so when you take into account everything here, okay, you take into account reason number 1, 2, and 3. Okay, essentially, this makes Russell Wilson the most affordable option for the Pittsburgh Steelers at the quarterback position out of anybody. Kenny Pickett would cost you about like $3.5 million, something around that range. This guy would cost you $1.6 million, and he's playing at a top 10 level when Kenny Pickett just last year was performing at one of the lowest rates in the National Football League in all of these same categories that Russell Wilson was lighting it up in. So essentially, when you boil it down to the gist here, this is essentially the value proposition for going and getting a Russell Wilson. You can get one of the clutchest quarterbacks in the National Football League that is already a Super Bowl champion, has already proved that he can get the job done, who's still performing at a high level, and will only cost you $1.6 million, the vet minimum in 2024. And I just think this would open up so many opportunities for the Pittsburgh Steelers in free agency, via trade, you name it, whatever. If you're only paying your quarterback $1.6 million, that gives you so much freedom to fill out the rest of this roster. And because Russ is still playing so well, because he's been one of the most clutch quarterbacks in the National Football League, I seriously think Russell Wilson is the number one option for the Pittsburgh Steelers if they want to give themselves the best shot at winning a Super Bowl in the short term. Now, of course, he is getting older, so it's not necessarily a long-term solution, but if you're trying to win a Super Bowl for Cam Hayward, all right, and we all know Cam Hayward is probably going to retire after next season. He's already saying that he's coming back, but let's try to think about Cam here, okay? We have a roster that is ready to win potentially a Super Bowl next year if they can get the right quarterback. All right, so drafting a quarterback, a rookie, that's not going to get the job done because rookies never win Super Bowls. I don't think Kenny Pickett or Mason Rudolph is talented enough to win a Super Bowl. But Russell Wilson, even though he's getting a little bit older, is still playing very well. He'd be the most affordable option, and he gives Cam Hayward, who's probably going to retire after next year, the best possible chance at winning a championship. And, you know, if I'm running the Pittsburgh Steelers, I want one of my greatest players in franchise history in Cam Hayward to get a ring, which is why I am seriously considering Russell Wilson to be my quarterback in 2024. Now, coming up here, we're going to talk about Justin Fields and the pros and cons of potentially trading for the young potential superstar quarterback from the Chicago Bears. But before we get into that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100 today. If you want to spice up your Super Bowl viewing experience this year, you can get started with Prize Picks today, which is a skill-based, real money, daily fantasy sports game. And if you're wondering how that works, here's how you play. You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they'll go for more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can even win up to 25 times your money on any entry. So let's take a look at my entry for Super Bowl 58 between the San Francisco 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm an optimist, guys. I'll take the more on Christian McCaffrey rush yards, and I like both tight ends in this game, so give me the more on receiving yards for both Travis Kelce and George Kittle. You can get your picks in right now when you go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use our code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100 today. With Prize Picks, it takes less than 60 seconds to make your picks. So get started right away. Get your picks in before Super Bowl 58 kicks off in just the next couple days. So go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use our code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100 today. So now let's talk about the possibility of potentially going out and trading for Chicago Bears quarterback Justin Fields. Now, if Russell Wilson is the best short-term option, I would say Fields gives you the best mix of both short-term and long-term value here because he is still very young. He's still on his rookie contract, still very affordable. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But if you're looking for a younger QB option to be your quarterback for the next decade, Justin Fields is probably the option that you would go with as opposed to Russell Wilson, who might be with you 3 to 4, maybe 5 more years before he ends up retiring, and that's the best case scenario. So let's go over the reasons why Justin Fields is a good option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number one is that incredible upside that he possesses. Not only does he have a rocket arm and an incredible instinct as a playmaker outside of the pocket. I mean, some of the throws this guy can make, the highlight plays he makes every single week for the Bears is simply phenomenal, which is why Bears fans, by the way, 70% in a poll we did here at Chat Sports, said they want Justin Fields over Caleb Williams. So that tells you something there if the Bears fans really like Justin Fields. But let's talk a little bit about his rushing ability, because in 2022, he arguably had the best season of any rushing quarterback in the history of the National Football League. Over 1,000 yards rushing, and his rushing points above replacement was the highest in the National Football League. He was a more valuable rusher than guys like Christian McCaffrey, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry. You name the running back or any other player in the National Football League, this guy right here was more valuable as a rusher. That's not even counting what he does with his arm. Just as a rusher, he was the most valuable rusher in the National Football League for 2022. And that's not even to mention that rushing ability here in Pittsburgh, it could be extremely valuable because the Steelers play in inclement conditions all the time, not only at home at Acrisure Stadium, but in the AFC North, M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore, Cleveland, right, First Energy Stadium, all these different places that they have to play. In January, it's snowy, it's rainy, it's cold, it's windy, and if you have a guy like Justin Fields who can run the football like he can, and he doesn't have to throw it 1,000,000 times per game in the cold and in the rain and in the snow, and he can run for a very good amount, that definitely helps you out, and that gives you a better shot to win those football games deep into December and into January in the playoffs as well. Number two reason why the Steelers should consider getting Justin Fields is that there are receipts of improvement of him being a passer in this league. So you look at his passing production over his first 3 years in the league. They've gotten better, okay? They just have. He's completing more of his passes. He's throwing for more yards. He's throwing less interceptions, and he's getting more touchdowns, all right? So plain and simply, this guy is getting better as a passer, and I definitely think that he has the capability here, especially in a quarterback-friendly offense with Arthur Smith here. I really think these numbers could skyrocket, especially with the way that he would use them as a rusher. And just speaking of, I see people on my Twitter all the time saying that Justin Fields is a terrible passer. He doesn't know what he's doing. Well, guess what, man? You compare him to our current starting quarterback in Kenny Pickett, just in terms of what he does with his arm, and he's so much better than him, all right? The adjusted completion percentage, it's higher yards per attempt, over double the amount of total touchdowns in the same amount of games. And yes, he does have more interceptions, but I just think that the playmaking upside, I'd much rather have that than Kenny Pickett, who's uber conservative. He's not accurate. He's not good in the red zone. I want the playmaking upside of Justin Fields, and you can see with the points above replacement figure right there that Justin Fields is a much more valuable quarterback, and I think that he gets even more valuable in this Arthur Smith offense, which is super quarterback friendly. Now, reason number three is that, once again, he's very affordable. He's not as affordable as Russell Wilson on the vet minimum, but he's still on his rookie contract, and if he's traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers, then they're not on the hook for his signing bonus. Chicago has that already figured out, and that will be on their books. So if you trade for Justin Fields, all that you would owe him next year is $3.2 million and some change. I think that's a very, very good contract. It keeps things flexible in terms of what you can do in free agency, and you get a guy that could potentially be a budding superstar in this league with what I think is a perfect fit in this new offense led by new offensive coordinator Arthur Smith. I've been watching a lot of Falcons film here over the last week or so, and really the thing that's stuck out to me that kind of surprised me a little bit is that Arthur Smith tried to do a lot of quarterback run scheme things with Desmond Ridder, and it just didn't really work out. But I think that if he runs that same stuff with Justin Fields from the pistol, from shotgun, with all the read options and the sub counters that they've been doing, that he was doing last year with Ridder, I think that they would be absolutely fantastic. And then you combine that with the QB-friendly nature of his system, the play action, getting him on the run so he can be a playmaker, allowing him to do the things that he can do in the red zone. I mean, Arthur Smith is one of the best red zone offensive play callers in the National Football League over the last half decade. And if you have Justin Fields as your quarterback who has that ability as a playmaker outside of the pocket and can run at hit like he can, 4.3 speed at like 220 plus pounds, I mean, goodness gracious, that is a match made in heaven between offensive scheme and play caller and then the offensive quarterback talent. I would absolutely love to see that. And if it hits the way that I think it could hit here in Pittsburgh, this could be one of the most dominant duos between offensive coordinator and quarterback in the National Football League for at least the next half decade and put the Steelers perennially in the Super Bowl conversation. Now, because Justin Fields is not a free agent, you will have to trade for him, all right? So there's two potential trade packages that I could see the Steelers doing for Justin Fields. The first one is to give up your first-round pick. Now, I know what you're saying. Jack, people are saying that he's just worth a second-round pick. But here's the thing, man. Atlanta, Las Vegas, there's a bunch of different teams that would trade their second-round pick for Justin Fields. So if the Steelers want him, it's going to have to be a first-round pick. Unless you're willing to give Chicago Deontay Johnson. And I think that would be a perfect fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers because Deontay Johnson, I don't think is a great fit for Arthur Smith's offense. So I think that this is something that could absolutely get done. Justin Fields for Deontay Johnson and a third-round pick. I think that would be absolutely fantastic. That's a deal that I would 100% make if I were Omar Khan. Get a guy that's a perfect fit for this offense, a guy that could be a superstar by next year and get this team into Super Bowl contention for many, many years to come. Now, it's your turn. Let me know down there in the comments section. Did I convince you that Kenny Pickett isn't the guy? Let me know by typing RW for Russell Wilson or JF for Justin Fields. If you still think Kenny Pickett is the guy and deserves another shot, that's fine. Type KP down there in the comments section. Or if you want someone else, if you want Ryan Tannehill, if you want Mason Rudolph, if you want somebody else, type O down there in the comments section. And then not only that, let me know who you want the Steelers to get as their next starting quarterback heading into the 2024 season. So for me personally, guys, my pick is I'm going to go with Justin Fields because even though I'm really intrigued by the Russell Wilson idea, and I'd be perfectly fine with getting Russell Wilson, especially at the vet minimum, I think that the potential long-term effects of getting a guy like Justin Fields who could absolutely be worth that $40 million plus contract once that time comes, I would absolutely go out and do that. I think it's worth taking the swing on. I think that it's a perfect scheme fit. If he's going to work in any freaking system, it's going to be this one. And then when it comes to Kenny Pickett, unfortunately, I do think that he's going to be the starter. So, yes, I've talked a lot today about why I think Russell Wilson or Justin Fields should be the starter. But at the end of the day, the Steelers are indicating like they still believe in Kenny Pickett. And whether or not that's the right decision, I certainly think that that's the wrong decision. But at the end of the day, they are the decision makers. So just keep in mind that even though we're talking about all these advantages and all these different things of going out and getting a veteran, I do think it's going to be Kenny Pickett, and he's going to get one more shot to be the starter of this football team next season. All right, that's going to be it for today's show, guys. Thank you so much for sticking around with me till the very end. Make sure you click that subscribe button for nonstop Steelers coverage all throughout the 2024 offseason.